Pag-usapan obviously as we speak, troubling developments sa West Philippine Sea, sa may Sabina Shoal, may mga pwede tayong pag-usapan sa West Philippine Sea. But let me start with things closer to home. Justice Carpio, since may mga nakalakos ako ngayon. Ano pong balita niya sa heartbeat sa ground sa may malapit sa compound ni Quiboloy? I heard that the PNP is putting their meron silang gadgets that detects thermal ba yan at saka heartbeat?
Well, I think there's reason to believe what the PNP is saying. Andyan lang siya. Is in a compound, but it's a huge compound, 30 hectares, ang daming mga buildings. So, and I think they have prepared bunkers, they have tunnels. So, it will take time really to comb everything there.
And Justice, do you think this is the beginning of the unraveling of not only the Quiboloy kingdom, but perhaps the duopoly with the Dutertes? I mean, without being overly excited, do you think this could be beginning of the final chapter in some sense?
Well, for Quiboloy, if he is extradited, that's the end of him because the U.S. will certainly get him and he will have to stay in jail for quite some time. So that's what he really fears. That's why he is asking the President BBM, to guarantee that he will not be turned over to the U.S. But nobody can make that guarantee. So that's what he really fears the most, that he will be extradited.
They always speak about extraordinary rendition a la Hollywood, yung mga dinadala sa Guantanamo ng mga Al-Qaeda suspects. What the heck is that all about?
No. I think they're just trying to say that to make it look that the Americans want to kill him. No, they want to put him to trial and jail him. I don't think that that sort of crime merits the electric chair. No, he will spend some time in jail
And
if he's convicted.
And probably not as luxurious as circumstances as he may be used to. Just to be clear on this, so automatic ba yung extradition sa kanya since he's also facing charges inside the Philippines? I know he's on the FBI wanted list, but from a legal standpoint, how is that? Is that going to be sequenced or mauna yung US? How do you think this is going to work?
It's up to the Philippine government. We can give him to the US so that he can be tried there first, or we can try him here first. So it's really up to us.
And Justice Carpio, what is your again, I know that you're not necessarily on top of this case and you'll be cautious about making any legal analysis, but what is your, let's say, at least primary level legal read na dapat ba unahin natin for domestic judicial institutions or baka better to let him face first justice in the United States, given the nature of his alleged crimes?
Well, I think we can give the Americans a first crack at him because they're ready already. They have gathered all the evidence, and I think they have strong evidence. So let the Americans first take a first crack at it.
And Justice, just again, question on the implications for the finance. I mean, we're talking about a very rich quote unquote kingdom, right? And Digong is kind of like the de facto administrator of all that money. We could be talking about, forget about billions of pesos, maybe approaching hundreds of millions of dollars. Just kasi na-interview ko si General Torre, di ba? Who was in charge of the operation. 30 hectare, tapos sobrang laki daw yung compound. I mean, may hangar. I mean, this is a lot of money, no? Justice, mas sequester ba yan ng Estado? How is that gonna work from a legal standpoint?
Well, they will have to file forfeiture proceedings, but if the Americans try him first, well, those will have to wait, no? Because you'll have to show that these are the proceeds of a crime. So that might be require a lot of gathering of evidence. So probably if the Americans might have already built up the case there because his people were seen or have been documented to be collecting contributions there and sending the money here, no? So they might have fully documented all of this. So we'll just have to probably give the Americans the first crack.
And your sense is the Americans have a more more prepared dossier than the Philippine government.
Yeah, I think they're more advanced in the gathering of evidence, and if the trial takes place there, his followers will not be creating trouble here like what they're doing now.
And just as what do you say about yung mga reports? I suppose fake news yan that maybe FBI or the Americans may be involved also in these operations, considering how complicated it is. Parang may mga underground tunnel siguro yan or something like that.
Well, I have no information on that, but probably they could have lent us some uh, uh, instruments to detect the presence of people underground. That's possible, but I don't think they're there.
Now, it looks like things are not looking so good for Quiboloy, and I think we have been seeing reports of him sending feelers of surrender. Let's talk about the other favorite son of Davao, like Duterte's. I mean, Justice Carpio, where does that put Rodrigo Duterte as the other side of this equation of the whole Quiboloy enterprise? Because they're kind of tied at the hip, right? I mean, they're may pagka-Siamese twins the phenomenon there, no?
Well, he will be the administrator. He will have access to a lot of funds, a lot of properties. Uh, but probably there will be an accounting when they turn over. So it's difficult to assess exactly what are the funds he will be managing. But he has the legal authority to administer for sure.
Are you suggesting that he may not be really sad if ever Kibuloy is taken to the US? Like, oh, kasi di ba nag-release na, I feel so bad for Kibuloy. I hope you'll be okay. And then like, well, just in case, akong bahala sa lahat ng kingdom. I mean, that's an interesting conflict of interest for two very good friends.
Well, we don't know what we first of all we really don't know the extent of the properties or assets of the kingdom of Jesus Christ, no? Uh, because we don't know how it's structured. There could be a, a corporate body, they call it a corporation soul, uh, where it belongs to, theoretically, the assets belong to the congregation. And the trustee is the the head of the church. No? But I don't know how Kibuloy structured the assets, whether it's a corporation soul or not.
Interesting. So to create some, plausible deniability. Parang yung ginawa niya sa SMNI, di ba? Na parang may denial pa siya, is really in charge of that and also you can do some mumbo jumbo corporate structuring around that.
Well, because for religious corporations, they call it the corporation soul. There's really just uh, one incorporator, and that's usually the bishop or uh, the head of the church. So I really don't know how he structured his religious entity.
Sorry, Justice, I'm pushing on this because from what I remember, you're a tax law expert, or at least, I mean, and you have an economics background. So siguro I'm pushing you too much on the money question, and we're both Ilocanos too. But Justice, speaking of the Dutertes, because I want to also talk about the PhilHealth issue because you had the letter, open letter warning the administration on this issue. Because I want to remind everyone na hindi lang kami nagbabash lang sa Dutertes. We also have strong warnings for the current administration of Marcos. But before going to the PhilHealth issue, can I also get a little bit of your take on this whole Shimenat, this whole Sara Duterte meltdown, if I can put it that way, in the most polite way I can put it, sa budget hearings? I mean, ano ba yan? Parang checkmate ba siya? Ang wala talaga siyang masabing palusot, or it's just she's just weak, that she's a poor replica of her father, who would have probably been more entertaining and evasive, or octopus squid tactics, no, in dealing with this kind of hearings. Or surprised by how should I put it, sloppy Sarah was actually.
Well, that's really the spoiled brat in her. The she had a problem to begin with because the liquidation of the 125 million confidential fund turns out to be really defective because it was it was used to buy food, to buy tables and chairs.
10
So
million for rewards. Exactly 10 million. Like wala man lang 1 peso up, 1 peso down. What rewards do they give? Everything is sakto lang, 'di ba? I mean like there's no there's no up and down. Grabe.
yeah, well, actually, the old man Duterte did that when he left office. Sinimot niya all his confidential funds were wiped out. I mean, he used to the last centavo, and he divided it equally between confidential intelligence fund. How can you be so exact in dividing? No, but that's how he accounted for it. He divided down to the last centavo.
Hating kapatid sa intelligence at sa security. I mean, that's a, I mean, just, I mean, I would say, I mean, aside from, I mean, we can talk about the spoiled brat angle, but it looks like, well, first of all, she's not the president. So iba yung presidente ka pa rin, you can get away with things a bit more. But she doesn't seem to have the right team also, no? Medyo sloppy yung kanyang communications team, sablay yung mga PR niya, para hindi na proofread. They don't seem to be able to, parang wala siyang bongo to be able to, you know, make sure she doesn't get herself too much into trouble. Medyo parang JV team yung dinala niya sa hindi naman Malacanang, ano ba, Coconut, ano ba, saan ba siya? Saan ba yung opisina ng OVP nowadays? Di ba, Justice, parang very C-League yung kanyang staff. Parang ganun ang dating sa akin.
Well, that's the the mayora in her, no? Because if you're just a mayor, that's how you act. I mean, you're not too fastidious in those things. You're not very careful, and it looks like she has carried that over to her office as VP. And I think the liquidation of the confidential fund shows it because at first glance, those expenses are not for confidential purposes. I mean, that's basic. And probably they did not expect that it will be revealed, no? Because it never happened in the past that uh, your liquidation of confidential funds has been exposed to the public.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much lack of due diligence, right? Parang hindi nila kinonsider yung posibilidad na mag-away sila ng mga Marcoses. I mean, I was writing about this 2021 pa lang. Like, inevitable, this is a divorce waiting to happen, right? I mean, like, I don't know what level of sloppiness we're looking at every single level. So, Justice, do you think she has even given more credence or at least inertia to the potential impeachment moves? Or parang late na masyado kasi it's September 30 na yung end of ano, 'di ba? Yung magbo-break na yung Congress.
Well, there's still the second half, the last 3 years. No, it can still happen, and we don't know whether they will push for it because she's actually saying that there's a plan to impeach her.
I think she got it from our podcast, me and Ronald. Kasi tinanong sa akin, sinong source mo? Hindi niya masagot. I think nakikinig siya sa podcast namin tsaka mga interview natin kay Sonny Trillanes. So, going back to this Justice Carpio, do you think her inability to, I mean, not forget about, her unwilling, parang wala siyang pake, hindi niya na-explain yung kanyang budget. I mean, that could even strengthen the momentum, no, in terms of going after legally, right? Not only impeachment, the Supreme Court case on confidential fund. I mean, how are you looking at it from that angle?
Well, she might be daring Congress to give her a 1 peso budget. I mean, and she plays the part of being
Big thing.
oppressed by Congress. Uh, but I think they'll give him just enough budget to run the office. No, but all of those other perks like having your own DSWD to give money away, that might not be given to her.
So tatanggalin lahat ng mga duplications na meron
Yes,
siya na pwede gawin ng ibang ahensya. I mean, she can have
that's
a
right.
quote-unquote Lenny budget, right? Leany budget. Yung lean na
Very
budget ni
lean.
Lenny, di ba?
Yeah, that means she will have to, uh, like Lenny, ask for donations if she wants to have projects.
Right. So looks like at least we have a precedence. At least lucky for her, there's the Lenny model. Ibang usapan kung she has the competence of Lenny or COA level transparency of Lenny. Now, before we get bashed for too much talking about Duterte's, I want to ask one last question on this before we transition to Marcos and West Philippine Sea Justice. Um, Again, how did Davao end up with Duterte so on top? I mean, Davao has produced people like you. I mean, the Nograleses are not necessarily the paragon of progressive politics, but I mean, how come, like, how did Davao become synonymous with Duterte's? I mean, isn't that frustrating? I mean, ako, as a Ilocano, when people equate us to Marcos, it's parang hindi. I mean, we have so many other great Ilocanos, right? But I suppose for Davao people, some of them are wondering, why do you equate us to the Dutertes? And from the outside, why are the Dutertes the only game in town?
The secret of the Duterte, I'll tell you, it's the confidential funds. Because the old man Duterte invented that. He was the first mayor, the first LGU official to give himself, through his budget, passed by his own city council, a confidential fund. And it grew over the years. And when Sara was the last time she was mayor, it was almost ₱500,000,000 in confidential funds. You can just imagine what you can do with that. I mean, you can put all the uh, spouses or children of all barangay chairs to in your payroll, and so you'll never lose in a single barangay. That's really the secret of the political power of the Dutertes. It's a confidential fund.
Right. No money, no honey. So as their funds get squeezed, are you saying that naturally their ability to flex their muscle will also be affected,
Well,
no?
it will. Well, right now, they still have confidential funds in the budget of the city because the Supreme Court has not acted on our petition. I was one of the petitioners there, questioning the constitutionality of these confidential funds.
That's very good point, Justice. I mean, of course, Sonny will say it's that money plus the muscle, which is what we're referring to, the other DDS, right? The original permutation. Justice, now let's talk about the administration right now. Kasi binabash na tayo na masyado daw tayong Duterte haters. Gusto ko pa naman bumalik sa Davao. Na-miss ko pa naman ng Davao. I don't know about you, Justice, but I miss Davao. Let's talk about the PhilHealth issue because this is a big problem. And kanina lang I was with a mechanic friend of mine and he was telling me about you know yung flood control issue, bakit hindi daw pinag-usapan, bakit puro mga Duterte ang pinag-usapan, bakit hindi pinag-usapan yung kapalpakan ng mga yung flood control. Ilang billions ang ginastos natin. Yung nakatakas si Alice ko, si Quiboloy hindi pa nahuli, and then of course is PhilHealth issue. Napaka laking skandalo ito kung totoo talaga yung mga ibang reports. So Justice, can you remind us of the open letter? Was that an open letter you sent? I mean, the last time you had an open letter, it worked, right? Yung POGO ban. So you never know. Baka lucky number 2 na naman tayo.
Well, the basic thing here, there are two principles involved. No? Under the Constitution, in the executive branch, it's only the president who can transfer savings from one item in the budget to another item in the budget. It cannot be exercised by any other executive official. So what Congress did in the General Appropriations Act was to authorize the Secretary of Finance to transfer savings. They call it excess funds, but that's the same as savings from one item to another to fund the unprogrammed appropriations. Because what they did was, like the modernization of the AFP, they did not fund it. But that's really necessary because
Exactly.
it's a matter of national survival. But they did not fund it. What they funded were their pork barrel projects and lodged these funds in the Department of Public Works. So now their pork barrel has been funded, but the national defense has not been funded in terms of modernization. So they authorized the Secretary of Finance to scoop the savings in
This is recto.
PhilHealth and
This is
other
recto. This is
GOCs
Ralph
and
Rector.
transfer it to fund the modernization, to fund the salaries of health workers during COVID. Uh, and so that's the problem. First, the authorization in the GA8 for the Secretary of Finance to do this is unconstitutional because it's only the president who can do it. Second, there's a provision in the Constitution which says uh, money raised to taxation for a special purpose cannot be used for any other purpose unless the purpose has been accomplished or the Congress has abandoned it. Like PhilHealth, the PhilHealth funds come from excise taxes. It says there in
Right.
the Internal Revenue Code, in the excise taxes, let's say 15% shall go to the PhilHealth for universal health services. So that is a special fund. It cannot, no, even the president cannot transfer those funds to any other item. Even the president himself, who has the power to transfer, cannot do that because there's a constitutional provision which says it cannot be transferred. That's one of the exceptions on the authority to transfer funds. Uh, so there are two provisions of the Constitution that are violated here. Uh, they authorize the Secretary of Finance to do the transfer when it should only be the president. And second, they allowed the Secretary of Finance transferred special funds which cannot be transferred because these funds were raised through specific taxation. So
Hmm.
they will have a problem because it's just too blatant the violation, no. Uh, so I don't see how they can get away from this,
Right.
and
What do you
and
mean? Justice, isn't there a way for them to correct it, to reverse course? I mean, uh, as the ship sailed, I mean, in terms of the mistake or
well, what they can do is to authorize. Well, but it's already done. It's already in the GAA, no, and they already transferred. They transferred already about as far as I can recall, from PhilHealth, they made two transfers, about 30 billion already. And that would constitute actually technical malversation because uh,
so my
when you
criminal
use
liability,
public
you're saying?
funds, yeah, because when you use public funds for a purpose other than that intended by law, that's technical malversation. And the amount is more than 50 million. So that's really plunder if it done more than once. So they transferred twice already. So I think they have to be very careful about this.
Yeah, and obviously politically, this is going to be weaponized by the other side. Justice
Yeah.
Ano
In fact, Duterte is already using this.
and
Uh,
Bongo in the Senate, right?
yeah,
He's
Bongo,
raising it.
they're
Yeah.
already using this. They will use it against the administration, and it's really it will hurt them because the people will see that this is supposed to be for their uh, health needs, for their medical needs, and it's being transferred.
So Justice, ano ba tayo? Team Kadiliman or Team Kasamahan? You saw that? Yung kay Harry Roque. Hindi po to ay laban ng Duterte at Marcos. Ito po ay laban ng Kadiliman at sumagot, Kasamahan! Mahirap pumili
No,
dyan.
I think they will come to their senses here and do what is right because I think they will surely there will be a blowback here. The people will really will get mad, and I don't think they want the people to be mad at them.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, if there's one thing I would give to BBM is he's more capable of recalibrating and swabbing his way than any of the Dutertes, right? Parang the Dutertes, the more you criticize, the more they dig in, di ba? At least si BBM, you could see he could recalibrate whether sa Maharlika Fund, yung confidential fund ni Sara, etc. So let's see kung saan mapunta itong meow-meow na situation na nila ito. Kasi just the reason I ask you about you raised the malversation and plunder issues because I was wondering kung baka mapunta lang tayo dun sa DAP situation the time you were in the Supreme Court at essentially, well, it was more than a slap on the wrist when you declared unconstitutional yung fund realignment under Pinoy's administration, right? But there was no criminal liability back then. Nevertheless, it was very politically toxic, and I think it did cost Pinoy his good governance credentials.
Yeah, well, because uh, there's a principle that as long as that law has not been declared unconstitutional, you can rely on it in good faith. But here, you cannot claim good faith anymore because the
By
case has been
President.
filed, and then you keep on transferring. Maybe for the transfers made before the case has been filed, you can claim good faith. But if you make your transfers now, it's difficult to claim good faith because you've been appraised, you've been informed already about this unconstitutionality. So what they should do is to stop. Or if I were
Because
this
they could
the
say that, well, we have a different legal interpretation and we wouldn't make any change in our judgment unless there's a court ruling on this. I mean, can they make
well,
that?
they can do that, but they're taking a risk
And the
because
public, obviously.
the court might say, "Oh, you were already informed, and you still continued to make those transfers." So, why will you take such a risk when the penalty is so high?
And exactly, why would they take that risk, Justice Carpio? Is this the pressure for midterm elections we're talking? What is going on?
Yeah, but if you are the well, if I were the advisor, legal advisor, I would say first of all, it's very clear it's unconstitutional because it's only the president who can effect a transfer, and it's a special fund. So it's, I mean, uh, you can claim good faith maybe before the case has been filed, but now that the case has been filed, you should, show some caution already. Should be cautious already.
Exactly. But in case there is a sacrificial lamb option for BBM, right? He can make another head roll, right? Instead of his own. I mean, for
Well,
political damage control.
yeah. Well, now they can still control it because they made a transfer. I don't think the funds have been used yet. They can say, okay, the transfer is made, but don't touch that until the case is decided by the Supreme Court. That should be the prudent thing to do.
Yes, yeah, the prudential approach. Justice, the other, of course, the reason I talk about this letter is because gusto ko balikan yung first open letter or first major open letter mo kay BBM which worked, which is the POGO ban. What is the situation since then? Kasi may nakikita tayong issues about reclassification of some of these POGOs. Ay, hindi naman kami POGO. I don't know. Gaming, charot-charot kami. And then this Alice Go, nakaalis na pala talaga si Alice Go. And this new chapter of investigation with Cassandra Ong and all of this, stream of characters.
Well, what the PAGCOR is saying is there are legitimate POGOs and we should allow them. Well, I will grant that there are legitimate POGOs,
That's
but
not an
not
oxymoron. Legitimate POGO.
but not POGOs that have that claim that their market is China, because we know that they cannot operate in China. They cannot, because our condition is that the condition of PAGCOR is you can only operate in a country that allows gambling. But we all know gambling is banned in China. So all of these POGOs that claim that their market is China should be closed because there's no way they can operate legally in China. And they cannot comply with the condition of PAGCOR that they must have a legitimate market. Now, there may be some countries where gambling is allowed, maybe in the US, but I don't think they will. For me, let's say, for example, Malaysia, they allow gambling. In Genting, there's Genting Heights, there are casinos there. But for Malaysia, they would say, okay, you can have online, but you must register here because we want to tax you. We don't want you to operate in the Philippines. The Philippines will tax you, but all the gamblers are in Malaysia. Of course, that's common sense. So I don't see a situation where they will say, "Oh, we are operating in Malaysia, but our headquarters are here, and we are getting permits from PAGCOR." But they will be required also to register in Malaysia because Malaysia wants to capture their
Share of the market.
earnings to tax. So it doesn't make sense for them to say, "Oh, we will ask PAGCOR for a license. We will operate by online. Our market is Malaysia." It doesn't work that way. They will be
Sorry,
taxed in Malaysia,
acrobatic
and
plan. Yeah.
and if they are taxed in two jurisdictions, then why allow yourself to be taxed in two jurisdictions? You might as well just operate in Malaysia.
I mean, that's a weird thing. I mean, I was wondering also maybe some of these pogos will do like split it, like split the difference. Like they will do 50% in China, 40%, I don't know, in whatever other country, Caribbean. But still, for you, as long as there's even one dose of operation in China, pogo pa rin yan. I mean, illegal pogo pa rin
Yeah,
yan.
illegal yan because our condition is that you can operate provided your market allows you to. They do not ban gambling. That country where you operate does not ban gambling. We all know that you cannot gamble in China.
So even if 2% of their operation is to China, let's say theoretically they diversified. Suddenly may meron na silang market, I don't know, in Puerto Rico or like, I don't know, Ghana or something. Illegal pa rin yan. Parang they're just playing games with
Well,
us.
they will have to show that in Puerto Rico or in Ghana, gambling is allowed.
Right. So they can play some game. The reason I ask is because I interviewed one of the heads of the special economic zones na my accusations na may ganun, and adamant na yung isa na no, this their operation has nothing to do with China, blah blah blah. And I was wondering, well, they can have like part in China, part in US, whatever. Now, just is going back to Alice Go. I mean, isn't this another embarrassment for the administration? I mean, this idea of heads will roll. Marcos has been saying this since nung sugar importation, scandal pa, but I'm not sure enough. I mean, if any head is even rolling to begin with, or any major, show of strength is being displayed on this front.
Well, we'll just have to see because he just said it recently. I understand that they have a name of a high-ranking official who helped the escape of Alice Go. But we'll see. I mean,
That will be
I
the head that will roll.
yeah, yeah, we'll see if they will follow that up.
Now, on one area, I think this is where we go to the meat of our discussion, Justice. The one area where I think, in fairness, Marcos Jr. has shown some strength of character and all is the West Philippine Sea issue. And just the other day, we had the Americans here saying they're willing to do, I don't know, escorting our resupply mission. And General Bronner, once again, was very adamant that this is about our strategic agency, we can handle it on our own. What is your read of that? And then i-connect natin sa latest development na unfortunate nangyari sa Philippine Coast Guard and sa may Sabina Shoal area.
Well, I agree with General Browner that if we can handle it, let's handle it. So if he's saying that we have not tried everything yet, let's see how we can solve this ourselves. And if we cannot, then we will ask the U.S. to help us. So I think that's a fair statement to make because it won't be long. We will know because they just rammed again our ship today in Skoda Shoal, Sabina Shoal. So we will know if we can do it on our own.
Are we reaching the moment of truth whereby we have to come up with some radical new moves? So obviously arbitration is one thing you have in mind. What are the operational things you have to bring in? Kasi ginawa na natin joint patrols, ginawa na natin in transparency initiative. We're trying, it's not like, in fairness to this administration, it's doing a lot of good things on this front. What else? What are the other packages of things you have to do at this point, Justice Carpio? What is your
Well,
rate of China doing?
Well, I've been recommending that we bring another arbitration case for ramming our Coast Guard because that's a civilian vessel. And second, if they still persist, then we ask for the U.S. to patrol us, patrol the to have a joint patrol at the same time that we deliver supplies to Teresa Magbanwa or via Pichera Madre. I mean, there will be a joint patrol to accompany the RORE missions.
You think that that could make the difference, Justice?
Yes, because that's how Malaysia and Indonesia were able to survey and drill despite threats by China. The US and Australian warships were in the same area in Malaysian EEZ at the time that the Malaysian survey and drill ship was there. So that
Right.
is really the template to successfully resupply and also to survey and drill.
And Justice, speaking of this, I mean, d- uh, you, you think China will not be especially over aggressive towards us? Do you think that there's a template really here that what works for Malaysia and Indonesia could also work for us?
Yes.
I mean, even if
Uh,
we're a US ally, even if, I mean, of course, it could work both ways, right? Even if we're pushing them on also on Taiwan question, or hindi kaya matakot ang China na we're gonna inspire more pushback by others if we keep on holding our ground? Hindi kaya
well,
panic?
th- they were not able to stop the Malaysians. They were not able to stop the Indonesians. And with more reason, they cannot stop us because we have the Arbitral Award, we have a mutual defense treaty, and the Americans are ready to accompany, to have a joint patrol at the same time. So uh, I don't think they will stop us because the American warships will be just too overwhelming for them, no? And they will not attempt to. The last thing they would do is to also attack a U.S. warship. They will not do that.
Right. And Justice, I mean, also I think from the perspective of communications, hindi kaya kailangan din makita natin mga kabayan na talagang hindi lang tayo parang committed sa ginagawa natin, pero lumalaban din tayo. I mean, should we also bang into their also like have our own coalitions, like, push back into them? I mean, to rally support or something like that. I mean, gray zone versus gray zone, Hull versus Hull. Should we go also in that direction? Like the
Well,
Viet
I think the better part is to go to the tribunal for that, because we should go to the tribunal without any taint of you having used force.
right. So moral
Yeah, we have the moral ascendancy, just like what we did in the Scarborough standoff. But uh, when we asked Americans to for help with it for them to accompany us, that's a different matter. I mean, the it will be if they attack the Americans will make a decision for themselves. And I don't think the Chinese Coast Guard or the Chinese Navy are in a position to fight the American Navy right now.
So what you're saying is that this is more or less the ceiling for Chinese bullying. It's time for us to, draw the line at a higher level so that they know that, they're not going to get their way no matter what they do.
Correct, because that's exactly what Malaysia did. They succeeded, and that's exactly what Indonesia did, and they succeeded.
And speaking of other ASEAN country, we recently had, since the last time we talked, the first ever joint Coast Guard patrols between Vietnam and the Philippines. Obviously, the Vietnamese also went to China. They're playing their game. But do you think that could be beginning of a new chapter for Philippines and Vietnam?
Yes, I would say that Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines, and maybe Indonesia should start having joint patrols because, Richard, we don't know if 5, 10 years from now, there's an American president who say, "Oh, we can't be protecting everybody." They might just leave. They must. They might leave the South China Sea. So we have to prepare for the day when we'll be on our own, and the best preparation is to have joint patrols with all our neighbors, together with all our neighbors who are prejudiced by this 10 dash line.
Uh, I completely agree
That's
with you, Justice. But I mean, this could even happen next year if Trump 2.0 turns out as crazy as some people fear. I'm not saying that will
yes,
happen, but it's not impossible.
yes. So we should prepare for that day. Our first line of defense is, of course, our own uh, naval strength. Our second line of defense is the MDT, Mutual Defense Treaty, and the third will be our joint patrols with ASEAN countries who are also in the same boat as us vis-a-vis the 10-dash line.
Right.
So we should prepare for that day already.
It's a good point because the Indonesian top Indonesian general reiterated his preference for all ASEAN naval drills. That proposal was there last year, pero parang Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia lang yata sumali, di ba? And the Cambodians, in behalf of their patrons, oppose any in the so-called Natuna Sea area. So they had to move it a little bit away from the 9-dash line. I'm not sure we joined that, but do you think if ever there'll be another all ASEAN naval drills, we should definitely be part of that and push for its regularization?
Yes, we should always join, and we should one day bring it to the West Philippine Sea. I mean, what we did with the Vietnamese, I think that's a very good start because we've been wanting to do a joint patrol in our own EEZ, and we'll do also a joint patrol in the EEZ of Vietnam, in the EEZ of Malaysia, in the EEZ of Indonesia. So China will see that these other countries, the small countries, have this are determined to protect their exclusive economic zones.
And together, we're not that small. I mean, we're going to be 500 million people, right? I mean, just put Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam together. I mean, that's already 500 million people easily. Um, just as we're moving towards the latter part, I'm sorry I drag you through a lot of issues because parang matagal tayo hindi nag-catch up, parang ganun. So, inabuso na kita, Justice. What about the Japan one? Also we had this first ever joint patrols with Japanese self-defense forces, right? Also within the West Philippine Sea. Do you see Japan emerging as also a very important player if the US indeed becomes more isolationist should a Trump 2.0 comes into power? Hypothetically, could Japan step up and be really not big brother, but kind of like a captain of the team?
Yes, I think we are strengthening our relations with Japan in the military front, especially the naval front. Uh, we have already I think uh, we have already signed the reciprocal access agreement with them, and they're ready to step up because the Americans have told them that you have to help us. In the South China Sea, and they are willing. And I think they know the importance because they are also facing a big problem in the Senkakus. The Chinese are very aggressive in that area, entering, in fact, their EEZ, not only their EEZ, but their territorial sea, no? Their contiguous zone. So uh, the Japanese will be happy to partner with other countries that are they're being bullied by China. So I think they can anchor the Quad here, no? Uh, they because they have a strong navy, and they can provide us with Coast Guard vessels also.
Right. Um, Obviously that leaves also Taiwan in between us and Japan, and the Taiwanese officials recently openly suggested that they're more than happy to have some degree of cooperation with the Philippines, although obviously still working around the one China policy. From your perspective, what is the optimal and diplomatically correct way of working with Taiwan if indeed that should be the way forward?
Well, first of all, we can demarcate our boundary with a sea boundary with Taiwan. And of course, that automatically means that they will give up the the 10-dash line because they can. We will never agree to to follow China's 10-dash line, which cuts through our waters. So if they follow the normal boundary between two states, that's okay with us. And I think they will like that also because that's sort of a recognition, another recognition with them. But they were able to to have a fisheries agreement with Japan, and we should be able to do something like that, and they will be happy. And that fishery agreement will say, okay, that's the boundary where we will not fish beyond that. They will not fish beyond that boundary also on our side. So uh, that's uh, that's one thing we can do. And I don't think China can complain because Japan already did that, and we really have to demarcate the fishing boundary line because we don't want them to be fishing in our on our side. And also, well, we all know that if there is a, an invasion by China, the first thing China will do is to seize the Basi Channel because that's where the Americans will come in, will pass through to help Taiwan. But the Basi Channel is our territorial sea, so it will draw us for sure. So that's
We
why
cannot
I
be
think,
neutral. Yeah, we cannot be neutral.
yeah, I mean, because of geography, and China will have to seize the Basi Channel. That means seizing our own territorial sea. We'll have to defend our own territorial sea. That's the complication there. So we have to be prepared for that also.
Aspect of tyranny of geography, or rather, our geography being close to tyranny. Um, um, Last point, Justice. What is your advice in terms of the Philippines drawing this proper balance between showing that we are really our own, meaning we're not, proxy of US and all of that, or at least push back against that narrative by the Kremlin boys and pro-Beijing boys and Makapili boys, and at the same time also leverage what we already have. The reason I'm saying this is because I completely agree with you that eventually we have to work with the Malaysians, Vietnamese, and Indonesians, but they have to also respect us as a self-respecting country, as a self-reliant middle power, right? It's a hard balance, but it's something we have to work on, diba, Justice?
Well, actually, the Americans are not interested in any of our territories or maritime zones. It's China that's seizing our territories and maritime zones. So uh, our fight is with China, and the U.S. happens to just to help us because we are allies. But the Chinese and their propagandists have made this appear to be a battle between the U.S. and China, and we are siding with the U.S. No, this is our own battle because uh, we have to defend our maritime zones and island territories in the West Philippine Sea, which is being encroached by China. So it is our territories and maritime zones that are being invaded. We have no choice but to fight, to defend. And in the process of defending, we are asking allies to help us. So they want to present this as the dispute to be between China and the U.S. and we are being drawn into this dispute. No, this is a dispute between China and the Philippines, and we are asking for assistance from a treaty partner, the U.S. So we have to be very clear that we are being invaded. That's why we have to fight back. We have no choice, really.
Yeah, I mean, hindi ka pwede maging neutral pag may away sa sarili mong bakuran. I mean, as the great Senator Cynthia Villar would say, "Baba tayo," di ba? I mean, you're absolutely right. It's not us being dragged by the US. Actually, we are dragging in the US
Yeah,
because
we are
we cannot
dragging
have
the
it
U.S.
one-on-one with China. Exactly.
Yeah, there was a time when the U.S. Was hesitant to say that the the Mutual Defense Treaty applies to the South China Sea. They were hesitant. We were trying to force them to make that statement. Now they're saying yes, it applies to the South China Sea. So we are the ones actually bringing them into the dispute. It's not the Americans bringing us into the dispute.
And you think we have to hammer that point in the upcoming midterm elections? Because obviously I mean, I'm sure China will be interested in certain parties doing better in
Yeah,
midterm elections.
yeah. we have to hammer the point that it is our territory and maritime zones that are being invaded. And the US can always walk away. That's we're not our territories are safe, our maritime zones are safe. But we have asked them to help us.
On that clarion call, Justice Carpio, thank you so much. I'm sorry if I stuff everything on you, but that was a fantastic conversation. Parang nag-press conference tayo together. Justice, this was like our utak forum. Thank you, Justice. Everyone is appreciating your commentaries, including our haters. Everyone's reacting as we spoke. Like there were like 700 comments live coming in all different direction. Meron yung never Marcos, never Duterte, meron yung Duterte, ayaw sa Duterte, meron ayaw sa US, ayaw sa China. So that means we are making the right noise. Justice, thank you so much for helping us to make Deep Dive one of the leading podcasts in the country and for educating the public in the best way possible. Again, you're more than welcome to disagree with us, but do it based on facts, not based on propaganda. Salamat, Justice. Mabuhay po kayo, and hopefully we can have you soon in person in studio with Ronald Llamas and the rest of the gang. We would always be happy to
Yeah,
catch
I
up with
look
you.
forward towards that. And thank you for having me, Richard, and thank you to our viewers.
Salamat, Justice. God bless, and talk to you soon po.